Sales Babble is sponsored by Vidyard, a video solution for sales professionals.
Making all of these calls goes along with the assumption that every single one of them is going to be a client. And we all know that's not true. The facts do not bear that out.
Did you know that the more you think about selling, the less you sell? Our guest is author and sales consultant Diane Helbig. Diane shares the ABCs of selling, and those ABCs are not what you think. Learn how to succeed in selling without selling.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Welcome, Diane. Are you ready to babble?
I am ready to babble.
Diane, you and I met last week in Nashville, Tennessee at the podcast movement, and we had a hoot of a good time, didn't we?
Oh, we sure did. I so appreciate you hanging out with me and being my sidekick for, the parties and everything. It was a blast.
I don't know how we met exactly. Actually, I don't exactly remember, but we were chatting. I remember it was one evening, and you had mentioned that you had a podcast on selling, and you brought up this whole idea of the ABCs. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh man, I got to get her on the podcast.
That is exactly what happened.
So why don't we talk about the ABCs?
Okay.
What do you mean by that?
Oh my gosh. So for those of us who have been around for a while, back in the 80s, there was this whole belief of the ABCs of selling are always be closing. And there was a whole movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, and this was the belief system. And that doesn't work. I think that doesn't work.
Well, what do you think that means?
I think it means you always have to be in sales mode, that you have to look at everybody as if they are a potential sale, that your radar is always on, that like everyone is dinner, and you just have to be really good at, killing the meal. And you're going to be able to get them. And so, and there's so many problems with that. The first one is most people are uncomfortable with that on both sides of that equation. Like, I don't want to be dinner, right? So please don't assume that I am. So, and most salespeople and small business owners don't want to behave that way because it's uncomfortable and it's pushy and it's all the things that the recipient doesn't like. So why are we doing it?
Why do we think that that's proper behavior for a salesperson?
Because that's how we've been educated. And I think it's because before the internet, the salesperson really had all of the information. So we needed salespeople to come to us and explain about their product or service and tell us about the bells and whistles and the features and benefits and blah, blah, and whatever. And we just haven't gotten out of that belief system, but the world has changed and consumers are educated and they want solutions, not products. They want to know that whoever they're going to work with has their best interest in mind, isn't focused on their quota all the time, that they're a partner with them in their success, whatever that looks like. And the only way that a salesperson can identify that is by getting out of that always be closing and shift it to always be curious, because it puts you in a totally different mindset.
Always be curious.
Yes. Yes.
So how do we do that?
Well, it's definitely a mindset shift, and I think it's very hard for people. So I am not saying this is the flip of a switch and it's an easy thing to do. I do think we should be intentional about it because that's how we change habits. And it really comes down to deciding you're not going to be in sales mode. So like what I do is I just assume whoever I'm talking to doesn't need what I have to sell because it keeps me totally out of sales brain.
And I think that's a fair guess too, because most people are not going to be your customers.
Yes, right, exactly. So I just want to get to know them. I just want to know what's going on with them, what makes them tick, they're interested in, what they're struggling with, whatever it is. We were talking before about you and I are the kinds of people who just want to help. So we hear someone say something and we're like, well, what about this? What about that? I'd love that. Well, you know what? So does the other person. Because what is it telegraphing? It's telegraphing that I care about you. I'm interested in learning about you genuinely and helping you solve a problem, period. Right? Sales doesn't come anywhere into it. So then we build trust. Well, that's who people are going to do business with long term. They're going to do business with people they trust. And you can't get there by treating your prospect or treating everyone you meet as if they are a prospect.
I didn't mention this at the top of the show, but you're actually the author of a book called Succeed Without Selling. The more you think about selling, the less you will sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have some great things in here that I really found value was that selling should be about discovery, connection, and problem solving.
Yes. Right. Right. Selling has a bad rap on purpose. Yeah.
And then you further go on in your prospecting section, which I really loved. It says that prospecting is about getting a meeting. It isn't about making a sale.
Oh my gosh. Like, doesn't that even feel liberating when you say that out loud? Like, the truth is that A, you don't know whether you can help the other person, and B, you don't know whether you want to. So your goal is just to get the meeting, get the conversation. It's not getting the sale because you don't know if there's a sale to be had.
This makes them think that I could hear somebody listening to this right now thinking, well, what am I just doing? Just shaking hands and saying hello? Or
yeah, no.
My boss isn't going to be happy about that.
Yeah, well, there is the whole boss thing that definitely plays in. I firmly believe that if a salesperson, there's different aspects of the sales process. So if we're networking, then we should absolutely be in discovery mode all the time because we don't know who we're meeting and how they fit into our world, right? Like for me, networking is about building a toolbox of resources that I can then share with other people. It's not about me selling to the people in the room. If someone in the room needs me, they'll know they need me and they'll reach out and we'll have that conversation, that exploratory conversation. So salespeople are better off, in my opinion, going to a networking event or doing any sort of networking to build relationships with people and learn about them and figure out who really are good resources, who is good at what they do, who is out there that can be of value to the salesperson's community. When they're prospecting, they should have a list of who they're prospecting toward. And then when they're prospecting, it is about learning about them. If the salesperson does their research and they learn as much as they can about the prospect, then when they go to reach out, they're going to have something to talk to them about. They're going to have the beginning of a conversation. So I saw on the internet that, you have a look on your face. What is it?
This sounds like a lot of work because I think this is where people get caught up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we see this in one of two ways, or maybe there's more than two ways, but here's a couple ways that people do this a lot. People trying to prospect on LinkedIn and people trying to prospect on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And in both cases, you got this list of people you should be calling. It could take a while to go look them up on social media and see what they're doing or see what their company's doing. Or
sure,
this sounds really time consuming.
Oh, it is, but so is dialing for dollars. You're going to spend the time one way or the other. So do you want to be productive with your time or do you just want to be active with your time? A lot of salespeople, see what I mean? It's okay, make 40 calls. Why? 38 of them are garbage. Why? Shouldn't I just have really meaningful beginner conversations with 2 people? Because eventually that's what it's going to be anyway. But I could get there faster if I did my research, the information's out there, and I have something to talk to them about. Making all of these calls goes along with the assumption that every single one of them is going to be a client. And we all know that's not true. The facts do not bear that out. So you feel good at the end of the day because you called 100 people and left messages? Woo! That sounds like a lot of fun. That's a lot of work. And I think it's a little depressing. But if I research 20 companies and I call 10 of them, there's the chance I'm going to have conversations with maybe 5. Okay, I'm ahead of the game.
What do these conversations look like? People often struggle with, I don't know what to say on the phone. I don't know how to advance the conversation. What do I say?
Right. Well, so I'm going to back up from there and say this is why I love LinkedIn when it's used the right way, because the more real relationships you have on LinkedIn, you can do your prospecting research there and find out how you're connected to your prospects. And then you can ask the connection for an introduction. So it makes the conversation easier because you've already jumped over some of that trust gap because the prospect trusts the person who connected you. So it's a little calmer, it's a little easier. But, I think if you call and honestly, this may sound counterintuitive. I think if you call and you say, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just wondering if I could ask you a couple of questions. I have done some research on your company. I noticed X, Y, and Z. Would love to learn more about that. If, as we continue this, I think I might be able to help you, I'll be happy to tell you that, but I'm not going to try and, this isn't a sales call. This is a conversation. That instantly brings the temperature down for everybody involved. They open up, and then you can have a meaningful conversation. Now, you have to have your questions. You have to know, what do you want to know? And some of those questions, like in the sales conversation, will be the same for people, but it's industry specific and it's prospect specific. It depends on what you learn about them. It depends on what you need and want to know and what you want that foundation to be.
Sales Babble is sponsored by Vidyard. Vidyard is an easy-to-use yet powerful video solution that makes it simple to create videos, host them ad-free, share them with others, and track their performance. Whether you're recording a video for one person or sharing it with the world on your website, it's easy to manage your video content. Vidyard's solution is built for business with robust analytics, integrations with top enterprise tools, and customization options that answer businesses' unique needs. But you may be asking yourself, what's this got to do with sales? Well, with Vidyard, you can differentiate your emails by putting a face to a name when prospecting, following up, and demos. You can use the same CRM and outreach tools that you use every day to build content the entire sales team can leverage and track analytics to know which videos convert best. Sign up for a free Vidyard account today by going to vidyard.com/babble, and as a bonus, get their high conversion virtual sales playbook. Again, go to vidyard.com/babble. That's BABBLE. I've had people tell me, though, why would somebody talk to me then? Why would they want to waste their time talking to me about them discovering themselves and having curious questions about my company? What do I get out of that? That's what sellers have told me. They've said, what is that person that I'm talking to? What do they get out? Why would they even bother to chat with me?
Because people love talking about themselves and they love sharing their story. So, right? Dale Carnegie said people thought he was a great conversationalist because he would ask them a question and then he would shut up. And they would talk. And then they would walk away going, wow, that Dale Carnegie, he is quite the conversationalist. Okay, really? Because, right?
I just reread that book a couple of years ago. There's this one section there where this woman got done at the end of the day. She goes, you're the best conversationalist I've ever been with. Yeah. You're the most interesting person. And he said, I think I asked 3 questions and just let her talk.
Exactly. So seriously, it's one of the best books on the planet.
It's still a good read. It's an easy read. Yeah. It was written in like 1933, I think.
It is amazing. But it's because it's about people. It's about relationships. It's not about selling as we've been trained to think of selling, right? He shuts up. And there's even stories in that book about how someone said to him, I'd love to learn more about, this with you. And he said, I'm happy to tell you about it, but first I want to hear about blah, blah, blah. It was a trip she'd been on or something. Totally turned it back. Said, I'm happy to tell you about that, but first I want to hear from you. Okay. Because the truth is, as salespeople, we need to learn more than we need to tell. Because the more we learn, the more we can connect what we have to say to their actual situation. Period. It's the more we talk, the less they listen. Let's stop. They're not even listening to it. And that's when they're going, why am I having this conversation? Like, why am I investing the time in this? This person's just going on and on about something that means nothing to me. I'm on a mission to rid the world of bad sales behavior. That's my goal in life.
What you just said correlates well with this quote that you have in your own book here on the section on selling. It says, quote, the more you think about selling, the less you will sell.
Yeah. Think about it. This is what is so bizarre to me. We are so focused on selling that we get the exact opposite of that because no one likes salespeople. So why do we keep engaging in behavior that doesn't work? We have to stop thinking about selling. Your mortgage will get paid. Your quota will be met. You will accomplish all of those things when you stop focusing on them, because that's not what it's about. It's about problem solving. It's about helping someone else.
So let's get some very practical advice to people in a couple situations here.
Okay.
How would you recommend somebody reach out to somebody on LinkedIn? What process do you use?
Are they reaching out to a prospect or a connection to a prospect? They're reaching out to a prospect. Okay. Well,
yeah. So somebody who they think is qualified by looking at their profile.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think before they reach out to them on LinkedIn, they should go research them so they know what's going on with them. And then I think they can do a connection request. They should do it where they can add a note, and they should say, I looked over your profile. I've seen information about your company on the internet. I think what you're doing in this space is, really interesting. And they can even say, we work a lot with companies like yours. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but I'm wondering if you'd connect with me here so that I can follow your progress. Okay. Once again, I said, I'm not trying to sell you anything, but I've made the connection as to why I want to connect. Okay. You can't just click the button and move on. Right. And then you got to follow them, and then you got to comment on what they're talking about. And then you can ask them if they would be open to a phone call. What you don't want to do is connect with someone on LinkedIn and then instantly send them the really long message that tells them every great thing about your product or service and how you've helped people just like them. Can we schedule a chat? Like, no, we can't schedule a chat.
I just got one of those today.
I'll bet you did. I'm surprised you only got one.
Yeah, and I told her, I go, you could do better than this.
Oh. And you can always tell when people have taken a webinar about what to do on LinkedIn, because you get bombarded with those and they're all the same. Like, they don't realize they're all talking to the same target market. So they're all sending the same exact message to the same prospects. Okay. Way to go. That's just not connective.
Let's look at the second section, a second way of connecting with people. Mm-hmm. Not everybody is on LinkedIn. Everybody has a LinkedIn account, but they don't necessarily log in. Sometimes you can do a connect request with them, and it may be months before they accept it.
Yes.
But you still want to speak to them. So you find their phone number, You're going to call them up. What do you say?
You say pretty much the same thing that you say in the connection request. You say, learned about your company, saw this, blah, 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 whatever, really love what you're doing, subscribe to your blog or, whatever it is. But if you are open to it, would love to connect and just have a conversation. Or, maybe you have a question about something that's actually that they're doing, something that you did read about. Some people don't feel comfortable just doing the cold outreach. So then I suggest doing an introductory letter, because then when you hit the gatekeeper and they say, is Mr. Jones expecting your call? You say, yes, he is. I'm following up on something I sent him. And you're telling the truth because he should, because you wrote
a snail mail letter.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Handwritten envelope, real stamp. The letter can be typed, but it should be short. It's not this big, long, blah, 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 whatever. But there's ways that you can do it. And at the end, you say, I will call to follow up, regarding scheduling a chat, a time to talk. You don't say at the end, if this sounds good to you, give me a call. Because A, they're not going to. And B, it's not their job. It's yours. So stay in control of the process.
I love it. Love it. As I mentioned, you're the author of this new book, Succeed Without Selling. In the back of the book, there's a whole bunch of interesting worksheets. We're running kind of out of time. I was wondering if you'd be open to visiting again Sales Babble, and maybe we could kind of walk through some of those.
Oh, I would love to do. Sure, I would love to do that, because those documents are also on the website for download, so people can actually use them. So yes, I would love to.
That's a great segue to, if people wanted to connect with you, Diane, what's the best way of doing that?
Oh, they can go to helbigenterprises.com. And they can sign up for my newsletter, or they can request a complimentary session. They can find a free chapter of the book. They can also find those documents, the resources that are in the back of the book they can download. All sorts of great stuff.
That's great. That's great. So if you could give listeners one piece of advice that they could take action on this week to improve their selling skills, what would that be?
Make a decision to reach out to 5 people to learn about them. Just 5 people.
5.
Just 5. Yeah, it's not a hurdle. It's 5. It could be 5 people you haven't talked to in a while. It could be 5 brand new people. It could be 5 people you network with. It could be a combination of those. But just reach out to find out how they're doing, what's new with them. How have things been going? How have they navigated the pandemic? What do they see moving forward? Just have a conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Diane, for babbling here on Sales Babble. This has been fun, and I'm looking forward to having you back someday.
Me too. Thank you. This was a blast.
To connect with my good friend Diane Helbig, you can find at the show notes at www.salesbabble.com, as well as our sponsor, Vidyard, video solutions for sales professionals. Did you find value in this podcast? If so, could you do me a favor and share this with one person, one friend, one colleague who's excited to grow their sales? On whatever app you're using to listen to this podcast right now, there's a share button that will send a text or a message or an email or a social media post. It'd mean all the world to me if you could forward this podcast to just one person who has the same curiosity that you do. Do it right now. Okay, thanks. So until next week, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.